Hello, my dear ones. Continuing down this line of systems, the fourth system, we're going to talk about the blood system. Now, I might be rearranging these systems. It just has to take a look as we progress. And I wanted Marco to kind of have that so you could watch our progression of how we expand things. You know, we start with basics and then we expand. The blood system. The blood system, you're looking at a lot of relationships here. You're looking at the pulmonary system as a relationship. You're looking at the hepatic side of this, which is the digestive side of this. But the pancreas is more the digestive organ for the GI tract. The liver is the chemical factory. So it changes, like glycogen into glucose or glucose into glycogen, which is stored fat, stored energy, so to speak. The blood is a colloid system. It is a system of electrolytes, some immunity. It's got whites and red blood cells. Then you have your formed elements of platelets and your white and your red blood cells, like I said. So the blood is your electrical system. It's, like I said, a system of colloids. Even though the solutes are small in the blood, it's still highly electrical. Matter of fact, you must understand that everything in this world is electrical before it's chemistry. And then when it's chemistry, it's highly electrical. It's like putting all these parts and making something more electrical. Then as the body breaks apart these formed elements and whatever the food is, through the cribs, through all these cycles, each little constituent, as it's released, releases energy. And this energy is consciousness. So the electrical system, when you get an A&P book, the blood has many factors for it. It has a lot of things that it does for the body. Matter of fact, one of the funny things, if you think about it, remember the elephants in the big ears, right? So we know that it keeps the blood cool. The blood's roughly 100 degrees. And so the blood actually is a big factor in keeping the body warm and moving heat around the body. It's obviously how we bring in our chemistry to feed. And most of it should be carbon. When you look at the blood, that's your diet. That's uno number one if you want to affect your blood system. And you would think the blood system would be first and the lymphatic right there. And it could be. But when you're looking at the world of health, the lymphatic system is the first system you have to address. Is it more important than the blood system? Of course not. Is it more important than the digestive system? Of course not. But it is a system that everybody's having trouble with. So when you change your diet, you have to change your diet for the lymphatic system because it is hooked to the blood system as well. You have interstitial fluid is about 70-75% lymph, 25%, 20% blood, depends where you are. So in some of that interstitial fluid they share, but one's an oil, one's a water, so you have minimum coming together there. You see that, I've said this many times, by popping a pimple and looking at that, the juice that comes out. Most of it's lymph, a little blood. Now you're at interstitial fluid. So the blood is the anionic. These are electrical components. All these calciums and all this are ionic. It just is the electrical system. The blood also deals with pH balances. And that can't even begin to tell you how important pH balance is in terms of cell wall permeability. In other words, if I have nutrition, I want to get into a cell, or I have ATP, I've got to make sure that the pH of the fluids of cytoplasm, which is the cell fluid, and the interstitial fluids have harmony with that. And you're always going to see the body favoring a negative charge on this. You're always going to see the body favoring the alkaline side of chemistry because acids are corrosive. The one mistake that physiology makes is that it also blood carries waste. Not on your life does it carry waste. It has some minimal, but even studying physiology, you know that the capillaries will not reaccept proteins in there, and that's real important to understand that. There's only rare proteins that stay in solution. Matter of fact, for a deeper look at all of this, I invite you to go to our school, the International School of the Healing Arts, and take our A&P course. That's Pat and me kind of going back and forth between medical and naturopathic understanding of physiology. And it becomes apparent that we're in a world of theories and we don't understand doo-doo. Because when you look at some of these energy releases off of these components, and we'll just take a commonly understood one, ascorbic acid. What all does that energy, that consciousness that's released when that is broken off, what does that feed? And if you know, we're getting into nanos, and I don't know if they're into sub-nano yet, but we're at those levels that are unseen by far. Even there's activity beyond the electron microscope. So there's so much that we don't know. It's the one most important thing is that in all life, you must eat your species in the types of food that you're eating. And the Homo sapien is a frugivore. So your diet as a Homo sapien has to be predominantly fruits and berries and melons. And if you want some herbivore food, then you can have some veggies or lightly steam it so you can deal with it better. But the blood system is a vital system. It carries, like I said, you have the formed elements of the platelets, which helps to clot the blood. And then you have some whites, and of course, red blood cells make up almost all the blood. The blood system really, and Pat was alluding to this one night, is considered a connective tissue system. Interesting. When you really take a look at that and how the blood moves and all that sort of thing. I think the blood moves around the body in less than a minute, if I'm not mistaken. Been so many years. So understanding that this colloid system, this system of electrolytes and this system of electricity must be taken around and given these sugars to these cells so they can form their ATPs. You know, adenosine triphosphates, and there's diphosphates, and there's monophosphates. There's all levels of energy components, but the one thing you must understand is it is energy and it is consciousness. Just so we don't understand them, we don't even understand the Homo sapien consciousness yet, let alone nano and sub-nano levels. Are you kidding? The human is way beyond its understanding, even though science is, looking at these things. You have to understand the basics first, and if you don't understand the basics, if your foundation is shaky, your house is shaky. And so far, the medical foundation is on very shaky grounds. 17th century germ theory, 17th century, 18th century disease theories. Come on. All life is chemistry. So when you look at the blood and you want to improve blood flow around the body, you must electrify it. Because in an acidic medium, things coagulate and slow down. So proteins, beans, grains, dead animal meats, pasteurized dairy products slow down the blood. Now, what color is the blood? You got a bluish and a reddish, right? You got venous blood and you've got arterial blood. I couldn't get a red shirt. That's because it's aggressive. Colors play a role as well in things. Why are they certain colors? And that color has an impact as well energetically on cells. So this thing is so deep that humans are well away from even beginning to scratch the surface. The medical profession, they're still stealing people's kids because they want to feed them raw fruits and berries and melons and maybe some vegetables. Some of these child services are working on one right now in California because they want to eat fresh fruits, berries, melons, and vegetables. Who said that those foods were hurting people? How can natural foods that are designed for your species hurt you? And this is some of the things that we get into. But the blood system, I have a blood formula. It helps, those herbs help to refurbish the blood. Famous for that, of course, is red clover, burdock. These are all great blood herbs. Of course, you get them in the liver formula. But the liver, again, the hepatic system, is for the blood. And even though we consider the hepatic system separate over here, no. We have, matter of fact, when you look at the hepatic system, you've got blood and lymph. You've got a liver and a gallbladder. And that gallbladder is not there for the blood, but mostly for the lymphatic system and lipid, the hydrolyzing of lipids and fatty acids and dealing with that whole system of cholesterol. So that's what you look at is these systems. And that's why when you go down these systems, you're going to see, like the blood system, have the lymphatic system in there as well. That's because that system intertwines with the lymph system in certain places. You've got the thymus gland. You've got the spleen, right? That's how the blood cleans itself. So you've got the gallbladder. You've got a lot of lymphoid tissues that interface with the blood, and that includes the kidneys, in my opinion. Now, whether the blood dumps into the kidneys as opposed to the spleen, that's a question that I can't get anybody to answer. I think the spleen is the universal organ because, again, acids have to go through lymph nodes. These particles have to go through lymph nodes for further breaking down, and then any cell that's damaged, of course, is going to go through that carnivorous macrophage thing. And then out the kidneys and so forth. Almost everything has to recirculate through lymph nodes. Why? Well, the pH factor of cellular waste, like we've talked for years about that, is about 3. Now, these are logarithms. So 4 is 10 times cooler than 3. But 2 is 10 times hotter. So imagine chemotherapy here at 1.5, which is where most chemo was, to 2, somewhere in that range. And it's 3 pH that destroys cells. Well, you're down to 2 is 10 times hotter. So if they give you a chemotherapy of 2, you'll be lucky. And second of all, that's 10 times hotter than the acids that damaged and made a cell, like what they call a cancer cell in the first place. Something doesn't make sense here. Somebody's got their screw loose. But you look at it, we're in the one world order times. They're shutting down your rights, and they'd just rather you dead. You're worthless eaters compared to both of them. Crazy stuff. Just crazy, crazy, crazy. I want to make sure I got everything covered for you on that. I mean, it's so important to learn that the diet is key, even if it's not perfect with fruits and berries and melons and just that. But it is important that it's electrical because in physics, you have the atom and you have a nucleus with protons, which is acidic, which is the male side of chemistry, and you have the beautiful ladies circling around in orbits. And the whole gig is the men stealing the ladies out of the orbits. So that's what you have, the electron transport system. But it's far deeper than what you read about in physiology. Because the electron, that's how life breathes. And the interesting thing in chemistry on that there is a saturation. If there wasn't a saturation, which who knows what that is, other than it must be a consciousness that comes out of the mind that gives a print that doesn't allow that chemistry to, to saturate and form a form. If not, you wouldn't be able to form forms because it's a constant a movement of electrons to protons. It's that magnetic move and all of that. So, and of course, this is also why you see most foods then, their carcasses tend to be more acidic than the original food. Like when you consume a fruit, a berry, a melon, a vegetable, your body's going to suck all the electrolytes out of that, break it down, get all the minerals, the all the like I said, the electrolytes and things, and then of course it's going to discard the rest. It's going to take those electrical components and it's going to use the electrical consciousness out of it. It's going to transfer the consciousness out of those constituents into the areas of need and then get rid of the waste. Where does the waste go? Not back in the blood. There is interstitial fluid for a reason, and it's 75% lymph for a reason. There's a reason that your capillaries won't reabsorb protein. And working on this book of the Fruitarian, one of the questions I asked Pat was, the fenestrated cells on the intestinal wall, are they different in a carnivore species than a frugivore species? And she sent me back a couple of studies on this. She really didn't answer it, but there was one study where they took a pill that measured the pH as it went down the GI tract. And I was noticing with the cat that it was about the same when you look at the need of that gut tissue, even though it's totally different. It's short, it's round, it's smooth. It's not like our gut. When you look at the design of the gut of a carnivore, it becomes obvious. Get the meat in, break it apart, suck up the amino acids, and get rid of the carcass ASAP, or you have putrefaction. Well, you can't have life where you have putrefaction in the foods you eat. That's what humans are doing. Humans have putrefaction and fermentation in their gut constantly because they're not mono-eaters, and they cross their foods. They eat foods that do not rhythmatically digest together. You can't digest and break apart a protein with hydrochloric acid and pepsin and expect that to be in harmony with, let's say, salivary amylase or pancreatic amylase or ptyalin. They're alkaline. Even trypsin or chymotrypsin. You can't activate them in a more acidic medium. So these pHs that the blood deals with are vital. And of course, you're going to pull down then to the kidneys and into the adrenals and the sodium-potassium balances, and you're going to go down that whole line of things. But in the blood system, diet is number 10 in every way, shape, or form, just from the astringent value of keeping your gut clean. Fruits are self-cleaning. Raw foods are self-cleaning. And that's what you want. Your dirty foods are your proteins, your meats. Those are dirty, burning foods. Those are dirty fuels. Grains and beans, what are those? Those are dormant foods. There's nothing electrical about those foods. You have to germinate them, sprout them, right? So a lot of people have bean things and what's some of the... I don't know. They eat these little round things of grains and stuff like that, fermented grains and stuff. It's like, really? No. Living in life. Jensen had that problem. He wasn't a vitalist. So his food he didn't eat food that was raw and vital. Any fruit that I would give him that was perfect to eat, he would let it ferment until nasty. Cut the mold off and eat it. What? I mean, there's so much misinformation out there. You want a tree to pick off a food, either an apple, an orange, or a peach, or whatever, in its ripe state. It's nirvana. It's nirvana. You should have the biggest smile on your face when you're eating, like, oh my God, I think I'm going to have an out-of-body experience. Holy crap. So the blood system, with that, you're going to be on the lymphatic system. I generally don't give unless you have some serious blood problems. The seriousness of the blood problems is going to be a lack thereof, and that's called ischemia. That means the blood is being restricted in some way to tissue. Well, then what way could blood be restricted in tissue? What could possibly restrict the flow of blood to any cell, wherever it is, heart, lung, brain? Lymphatic, the swelling and edemic lymphatic. That's why it is sitting at number 1 when you're working on yourself or your clients or patients. The blood will start to clean itself with those herbs. All those herbs in the lymphatic system, in the kidneys and stuff, those herbs will clean, and I deal with everything. However, so many people have cholesterol plaquing, or they have stenosis, hardening of the arteries from calcifications. All this comes from an acidic environment. So as you begin to just change the diet alone, you begin hydration. You begin detoxification. Like it or not, it's not your call, it's your body's call. That's the way life is set up. But you have to be able to win the day. Everything can't be negative, negative, negative. So the diet is always number 1. Now, there are circulation formulas that help to dilate and get that blood moving quicker around the body, and I recommend those when you see cholesterol or you see that little cholesterol ring in the eye or cataracts. It doesn't hurt to move blood more aggressively in the body anyway, especially if you have older clients. You definitely want to keep blood moving in those guys so you don't stroke or heart attack. And the body's going to start breaking things up to get it out the kidneys. So you have to look at all those things, and that's why I've broke this down into systems. The body is simply made of systems. We have different names for partial systems, like the urinary tract system. That is a member of a huge system called the lymphatic system. It's not its own system, but we can call it its own system, like the integumentary, the skin. But you got to link it to the endos, because every system has endocrinology involved with them. Of course it does. That's how you move things. Everything is kinetic here in creation. There's nothing's dead. Everything is in movement. Some, the electricity is lower, some higher. It depends. But the blood is a colloid electrical system that needs electrical food. An electron-rich food. That's how you bring hydration in. That's how you keep the lymphatic system hydrated and moving. Because again, it's a little tougher because it's lipid-based, dealing with proteins and acids. And these are the tougher sides of chemistry. Your body does real well with the carbons because it's the energy components. It struggles with the nitrogen sides, the protein sides. So, and depending on the species, you can't give a species like a primate species, a Homo sapiens species, a carnivore diet without destroying their health. And the proof is there. Human health is at an all-time low. I've said this for years. The genetic stance of the human cells, horrible. Mutations of the human being is obvious everywhere. So we have to correct that. And it's correctable. But you have to understand energy, consciousness, understand why the foods, why raw. Why does animals not sit there and cook their food? Why doesn't a horse sit there and cook that grass before he eats it? And how does a wild stallion get so big just eating grass? Can you explain that one? Where's the proteins? And I've said that for years. And these are legitimate questions. Where's the proteins a horse gets? Where's the proteins the elephants get? An elephant, not too many animals go up against an elephant, maybe a rhino. You've seen some dead elephants from rhinos, but then you've seen some rhinos get it too. So these are big boys. Well, wait a minute. They just do the veggies, though. The amino acid stories. Yeah. So it's really, some people out there come up with some of the stupidest ideas that I've ever heard. That the human is a carnivore. Human stomach juices are more acidic than any of the other ones. That's a lie. There's just lie after lie after lie. So hopefully through all of this and this new adventure we're all going on, I'll dispel a lot of that for you, and hopefully you have already. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to keep on going down every system here and help you with the herbs involved in that system. And remember, the blood requires the diet. It requires lymphatic work. It needs to open up the kidneys. And as you do that, you'll open up the hepatic side of that. This is the chemical factory of the body. The liver is constantly biotransmutating chemistry, always. You know, when biotransmutation of chemistries came out, people laughed, the scientific world laughed. They're not laughing now. We don't even understand half of that. Look at silica transmutating into calcium. There is so much biotransmutations of chemistry, we don't know it all. But I've been teaching that when did that book come out? Biotransmutation of Chemistry came back. I don't know. It had to be in the 80s, 70s, or 80s. And I'm going, yeah. It's time people understand more of what's going on. Life is always adapting and changing and growing and that sort of thing. Things don't work, they're kicked out of there. So if you want to get a little book, you know, this is biochemistry, and biochemistry has its own problems. I'm a biochemist, and I laugh at some of the concepts of biochemistry, but this guy was a good old guy. Just to give you some, you'll never find this anymore, but if you can find this, the Golden Years Society, that's T.C. McDaniel. He was a DO, but he takes you on a journey. It's natural. He takes you on a journey on colloids and the whole 9 yards of physics and biochemistry and his thoughts on supplementations. And he gets into the electrical variances of blood, and it's quite detailed into the biochemistry side of that. But for us, I want to always keep it as simple as possible. If you're one of those intellectual geeks, have fun, because I love this book. It's trying to find it. That's the problem. But have fun on your journey to Wellville. You know, you always look at things and look back and the systems and how they work in the body. Oh, yeah, I understand that. You know, I've got a kitchen, I've got a bathroom, I've got a digestive system. I got a little reproductive system sticking over there, too. I got to learn more about that. How can I fix that up? So all of these systems I'll address and get them fixed up for you. All right? Thank you so much. Love you guys.